got mail. Good morning, everybody. You are tuned to Computer Studio now on the Nissan Communications Network. I'm Amnon, your host for the next hour, along with Gal.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Nick is here.
Oh, hey. Hi.
Well,
Hello.
hi.
Hi.
Spence is visiting family in Atlanta. Katie woke up this morning, she said, to a bunch more orders. So she's packing stuff in boxes.
It's called multitasking.
Well,
I'm just saying.
yeah, I know. It should be.
I'm sure packing boxes and being on a video / audio show is not the most
on a show like that, like ours. It should be fine. But anyway, but it's good for her. She's getting a lot of orders.
Hopefully everybody had a nice Thanksgiving.
We had a nice Thanksgiving. Let me finish the intro. Our number is 919-518-9773. Computers 2K Voice on Skype. And today's show is made possible by vMix Software and is sponsored by Tom Sinclair of Live Streaming Gear. So, yeah, it was nice Thanksgiving. And thank you again, Salid.
Excellent.
It was very nice. See everybody. You went to the beach.
Yeah, the cold beach.
Oh, it was cold? I was just going to say, short sleeve?
Yeah, I tried. It was stupid. It was good.
Good.
It was very good.
Good. So, what happened last week that is sticking in your mind that you want to bring up, guys?
Well, just before we started the show, Amnon, you talked about the fact that your servers were going through some updates.
Yeah.
And one of the changes that were applied on your server's side was the replacement of the Redis service with an open source fork of it. Now, I'll give some background because that sparked some discussion.
Is a service like the equivalent of a program on somebody's computer, right? Like on a Windows computer, you'd have a program you'd run. That's what we're talking about?
Well, actually, on a Windows computer, it'll be the equivalent of. Sorry if I'm choppy. I'm seeing my CPU spike, and I can't figure out what.
It was doing it before a couple times. I figured, but you see, right now it's fine.
Yeah, you look fine right now.
Yeah, okay. I'm watching the CPU all the time, trying to figure out what's eating my. So I'll start closing stuff in a bit. Anyway, so this is the equivalent of a Windows service, right? There's the services list. There's a lot of stuff that's running in the background and servicing the OS. Trying to think of an example
that's
yeah.
Like a printer service, right? Something that's running in the background connected to your printer.
Yeah, so the printer spooler, right, is a service that manages all of the calls to printers, and then whatever goes to the printer, which printer, etc. The printer service is the one that's in charge of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a piece of software that the end user will never actually interact with it, but if it's down, nothing will print, right? For example, so Redis is a similar service. It deals with, it's called an in-memory database, and it's when you build a distributed infrastructure, something large that works with data. It helps manage temporary memory, basically, right? Stuff that you need to hold in memory for a while to make sure that a page refreshes fast and stuff like that. And Redis has been the de facto service since around 2000, since the 2010s, okay? And back in 2018, 2018, I think. Yeah, back in 2018, they actually made a pledge, like a public announcement. We're always going to be open source. Okay. March 2024, they basically reversed their pledge and they replaced their open source license. I think it was MIT based or uh, or something similar. And now the license for the software from March 2024 is called Redis Source Available License. Source available licenses are not open source. The same way that open source is not free software, like what the GNU Foundation is advocating for. So it's a step away. It does mean that the source is developed in the open, or at least released in the open. Whatever you're running, you can grab the source code, you can compile it, but you are not allowed to own it. And that means that um, if you run modified code, for example, you're not allowed to do that, etc. You will definitely not be allowed to develop a project that is based on that code, uh, and so it's a slap in the face to the open source community. And the open source community reacted. The Linux Foundation, which is one of the strongest foundations in open source today, they run a lot of projects. They've taken that, they forked it at the point where the license was still an open source license, and now it's Valkey, which is basically a verbatim description of what Redis does. Redis is a key value in memory database, right? So valkey, value, and key is like a good name for it. So it's a bit of drama, like it's the bit of drama that happens in open source, but that drew us to another discussion. The reason Redis is doing it is because Redis is a financial entity, right? It's a company and it makes money out of Redis. It made money up until now only by providing services around the software that they're selling. They'll help you implement it, they'll help you deploy it, they'll give you support if something is broken. Um, uh, and they continue to develop it. And that is completely understandable, and that is actually how open source software make their money, right? And so this decision, the way I see it, the way any open source advocate will see it, right? It is a step backwards, and it's going to hurt. The way I see it, it probably is going to hurt Redis in the long term. Because what will happen is the open source community will now shift their attention most likely to Valkey and not to Redis. And that means that Valkey is the project that is going to get the community's support. Any updates, any changes, any improvement in performance that the community cares about will go into Valkey. And this is what happens in forks like this, right? We've seen fork like this in other open source projects. One of the big ones is OwnCloud and Nextcloud, which are two competing platforms in the open source world. Another split is LibreOffice and OpenOffice, right? These are big shifts that people might have heard of. And what happens is at the beginning there's a tension, but at one point just another project just takes off in terms of community support. The Linux Foundation is strong enough, right, to sustain this for a while, and I think it will. there's a good chance that some of what was being paid to Redis by its uh, the entities who paid some
Can
money,
I ask you a
right?
question about that?
Yeah.
Who give me an example of who would be like, who would be a customer of theirs? We talking about like businesses and institutions? Like you wouldn't hire, you wouldn't have paid Redis, like major
No,
companies and
I'll
the
tell
like.
you who were until today
Uh,
Redis supported: Twitter, Airbnb, Tinder, Yahoo, Adobe, Hulu, Amazon,
Major
OpenAI.
companies. Yeah.
Yeah, not only but those are the big names
Yeah.
that definitely have talked publicly about using it, right? So yeah,
And again, all of
and
this was to set for dumbing it down for well, me, also, and some probably some members of our audience. So this would have helped them in serving content quicker on their websites or apps in the most part. Is that kind of the purpose of this app? I know that's not what it does in the background, but that's the end result for the end user, right?
so the most common use case would be something to the terms of what you're describing. Let's say you're running a search in some site, right?
Airbnb is
And
great examples. The
exactly.
properties in
So
Raleigh to stay.
right. So there's a lot of stuff that is being displayed right now for me, Gal Shkolnik, and there's a lot of stuff that is being displayed from to you, Nick, and there's a lot of stuff that is being displayed to other parties. And so reading from the database directly in order to show it on screen, that is reading from a disk. That's a slow process, and that's tasking on the actual database. And so what happens, there's a cache in between that keeps a lot of the relevant and some of the irrelevant stuff that might be relevant right in between in memory. So it's a structured way to maintain memory for a short term, basically. Okay, so um, if you're doing research from encyclopedia right now, you might have like a small notebook where you write down your notes. That's Redis, right? That small notebook. Okay? Um, it's an important piece of performance enhancing uh, uh,
Utility.
activities. Yeah. Um,
Was there an alternative before that? I mean, you mentioned 20 and you mentioned 2010 at the start. Was there an equivalent to this before they obviously the reason everybody's using them is because they were the best in the business.
there were different uh, uh, there were different solutions.
Mhm.
Um, I'm I don't know. There were definitely, so the reason 2010 was probably a shifting point. They're a company that was founded. Their initial release was 2009, February 2009. Okay, so obviously it took time until they, they they've become available and widespread in the industry. Um, the reason this was so great was this was an open source solution. Before that, there were only commercial based solution, probably from Oracle, and a lot of software outfits were rolling their own version of this. So the thing about software development, on the surface, a simple idea uh, will be any software developer will build their own, right? A library. The thing is that as time goes, the nuances and the quirks and the edge cases, they are not something that you would even properly test for them at at the start. And so the complexity of software as it moves forward gets more and more and more nuanced. There's a lot of things to take care of that you didn't even think about when you started the design. And it comes from the limitation of the structure, of the architecture, of the CPU. There's a lot of complexity. The reality is complex, right? It's never straightforward. And so this was something that was developed by a lot of enthusiasts that needed to solve something very, very, uh, uh, very important. But anybody who rolled their own always struck roadblocks in their way. This was finally something that was done in the open by a large group of people because it got this high adoption, right? So it became better than any commercial option out there.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Any other commercial. They were a commercial option. They were just doing it in open source, right? So I can buy Redis a Redis license, and that means I get the open source software, but I also get the company's support. And that's the open source model, right? It's like the software itself doesn't need to be proprietary. The concepts themselves, they do not necessarily need to be proprietary as long as there is a consortium, right, of individuals who are interested in making it work. And it doesn't matter if those individuals are backed by money or backed by passion, right? So,
As long as they do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
as long as they share it
Yeah.
with the community. It's not just about doing it, right? It's all about the sharing of it with the community.
So, Nick, you brought up something about
So, well, so I'll bring that up in a second. So they changed their license, Gal.
Yeah.
What is what's the quickly, what's the impact of that? What does that mean compared
Okay.
to where things were in the past? Why is any of this relevant? Who cares?
So source available licenses, right, means you can see this, right? And for now, I'm actually allowing you to download this, and you can even run and compile it on your machine. But you cannot take this and create another project, for example. Right? You cannot now create a competing project. And
You could not take this code and build it into. I'm building my own custom web server. I could not take that code and build it into my web server because it's no longer open source, correct?
no, you could. What you can't do is you cannot open a new open source project called Nix
Nix,
Redis,
sure.
right?
Okay.
And have people and have people uh, uh, walk around your code and start using your code, and you will start selling support around that code, etc. Right? It's like that is not allowed. So as a company, yes, you can take that. You can continue developing. You might even be able to continue developing it inside. But now, if you want to sell services that are using this, this is my code. Okay, so I didn't allow that, and that is going straight against the grain of open source, right?
So it's going against the grain of open source, which I'm a fan of open source. I know obviously you are, and I assume most of our audience is. Um, so then that begs the quintessential question, Gal. Why would a piece of software like this that is seemingly very popular, doing very well for itself, why would they go through the process of doing what they did?
So this, I'm guessing, okay, this is my opinion, but I am guessing that some pencil pushers in the background counting cents determined that money is being left untouched, and there's more to make if this would be private, if this would be completely owned by them. uh the most or the alternative is this is costing us too much to maintain when the community is so lively, and now we need to fund managing a community, right? Like that's the alternative. And the most I think the most interesting thing is, right, the reason they did it is said so nobody will fork us. In reality, the moment you make that decision, that is exactly what is happening, because that is the point where the community says, hey, you're not going to share with us anymore, right? It's only sharing on your terms, and we are no longer active participant in that sharing. Then this is the point where we part ways, and that's when the fork happens, right? The fork is based on the open source version. They cannot un-open source old code. So the moment that happens, the day before, that code has been taken out, right? And that's when we start a new project. And now the open source community is just going to shift their attention on the more successful project eventually, right? But everybody's betting their money right now, not their money, actually their time, on Valky. Now, what's the biggest difference? Redis is probably going to still benefit from some work in Valky. But Valky, I actually didn't check it'll be interesting to see what their licenses. If they chose, for example, GNU license based, no, they actually chose BSD license. If they would have chosen, I think they can't choose GNU because all of the code before that was probably BSD license, and that's fine.
Sure.
So the BSD license says share and share alike, basically. Okay, so anybody can fork it and create another project of their own. Let's say the Linux Foundation doesn't want to hear to some engineer's idea of performance enhancing, and he decides to fork it to another fork and say mine's better, right? And build a community around that. So that's possible with the BSD license, and that is sort of what they've been Redis has been trying to do. Maybe they're planning on creating, premium features on the Redis.
Uh-oh.
Oh, we lost your mic, Gal.
Yeah. No audio. Try hitting the mic.
Okay,
Yeah,
how
there
about
we go.
now?
you're back.
Yeah.
So I guess this is the larger discussion that we were having. I'm glad you brought that you gave us the backstory on it. So this is the quintessential question between profit and, in this case, open source providing for all. And we've seen this not only with open source companies, but one of the examples we've talked about in the last couple of years has been Unity, which is I don't Unity's not open source, I don't
No.
think.
No.
But it's a very open, it's essentially free. I mean, if God decides today that he wants to become a video game developer, Unity is a great place to start. The engine, which is the background of the game, which allows you to jump and the physics and all that other stuff, it's essentially all free. Now there are licenses associated with that. There are things you can and can't do, but their business model has always been make the product available for free. So people like Gal, who probably isn't going to make any money, is just going to play with this on the side, has access to it. But then Amnon comes around and makes a really, really successful game that Amnon's their cash cow. They're able to make enough money off of Amnon to support Gal, who's not making any money and is not going to with his little side project that he's working on. That only lasts so long. And that's kind of what we've seen with Unity is the um that process of providing for all, and I'll just say providing for all, making money from one lasts so long. And Unity, unlike Redis is a publicly traded company. I mean, they're on the New York Stock Exchange. So this is, not to take anything away from Redis, but this is a legitimate company. Like, I mean, this is not a hobby turned business. This is a very legitimate, like, full on, people have their retirements invested in this kind of company thing. And they have gone through a process that I think might be similar to this Redis discussion that we're having this morning, of providing it for free for most and having the Twitters and the Tinders and all of these other apps that you mentioned using it. That might just not be sustainable long term. And I think I think that's part of there was a period of time, if you go back to the early 2010s, you look at the App Store, everything was paid for. If you had an iPhone, everything was 99 cents, $1.99. There were some free versions, but most of the apps were paid for. That's not the case anymore. Nothing you don't pay for any apps. I mean, very few apps are you actually shelling out any money for. And that's because now these developers can make money on the advertising to justify and say, okay, it makes more sense to allow more people to use the app, and we can make more money than selling it for 99 cents, of which we get 60 cents of that because Apple takes their 40% cut. Um, but it's to me, it's a changing of the times a little bit. And the Redis example, I think, is a little bit different than Unity, because Unity has never been open source. They've always been a company that is operated as essentially a Fortune 500 company. But God, I think we're going to see more of this, especially in the open source community, as these groups try and figure out, okay, how do we actually make money on this? Because especially if you've raised money to develop your product, and you've got investors that are expecting, and you've promised them a return on their investment, you've got to be able to figure that out as even a small company. I mean, if I borrow $10,000 from you and tell you I'm going to get you your money back, I better have a pretty good way to generate some money, or you're screwed. Your money's down the toilet.
That's why the investors
So
look around to see what have you been doing, and can you?
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
right. So what you're describing is, right, the assumption that there's no way to make money out of open source.
No, I don't think
Hmm.
so. No, you definitely can. They have obviously determined that there's more money to be made elsewhere. Maybe it's a quicker fashion. But see, what's kind of peculiar about this specific story is, it sounds like they were already making a a decent chunk of change with some of these uh, companies that you mentioned.
So I'm looking here at the history to to be more precise about what's going on, right? So Redis as a project, as an open source project, started in 2009, as I said before, or started being available to the public in 2009. In 2011, a company called, back then, Redis Lab, now it's Redis Limited, was formed, and looks like it's an Israeli company, by the way, which I didn't know.
Huh.
Uh, and uh, um, and so a commercial entity around it, it's still privately owned. A commercial entity around it has risen. Now this is 2011. This is 2 years after uh, this has been out in the public. The world has started using it. In 2011, they were able to get right funding in order to create a company around it. So it's definitely something that on 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 the surface, right, was very, very appealing to investors. So something happens, right? They might, I don't know, they might get ready to an IPO or something, and some consultant somewhere told them, right, that open source will not be the best choice. But that same decision, and that's what I'm saying, that same decision is probably the one that's going to hurt them the most,
Sure.
because this is where the community is splitting away. So if they claim, right, the challenge here is they need to now show to the world that Redis as the commercial entity is way, way, way better compared to anything that the Linux Foundation can support. And let's remember, the Linux Foundation, first and foremost, right? They're the ones churning out Linux kernels all the time. A completely open source in all of its term, right? A GNU licensed based kernel. So this is something where the bean counters are always missing. The beans are not necessary. If you put the beans in number one priority, you're losing everything else, right?
But I'm
You're
gonna
going to lose.
I agree with you, but so then this brings up another question, and most of this from here on out is going to be speculation. But it sounds like to me the individuals that started this project or who were the leaders of this project, for lack of a better term, are no longer in a position where they're allowed to make decisions. That they've given up that ability. They've given up that right in all likelihood.
I
They I
mean,
don't whether
maybe.
they've but that's what it would sound like. I wouldn't believe that guys that truly believe started an open source project in '09 and presumably did that because they love, you know, you're a nerd or a geek if you're opening up an open source project. I mean, you're not just out of the blue being like, "Oh, let's just start an open source project," what the hell? Um Presumably they've lost control of the company now that is around this to allow the
I
bean
mean,
counter to say, hey, you could probably make more money, and they go, oh yeah, to hell with everybody's gonna probably hate us, and we're gonna lose, all of this, we're gonna lose all of our client, a vast majority of our clientele because of it, and become a pariah. That doesn't sound like that those two things mesh together immediately.
so I don't think it's that clear cut, right? In Amnon server's example, right? Um, they decided to switch to the fork, and right now, today, switching to that fork is pretty seamless, right? Because they're one to one identical at the forking point, and so replacing one with another is a rather easy action. It's not without its let's say it's not that it's no sweat, right? I'm sure there's a lot of angst of whether this will affect or not the long term. But the good thing with specifically with Redis, it is volatile. It does not hold any data. It cannot hold hostage any system because the data is locked in it, right? It's just its configuration. The rest is this is short-term memory, right? This is by definition, I am not holding anything ransom. So this is not even like a database, and so uh, it's easy to switch away, right? For
Well, I
this
don't know.
particular product.
I don't know that it was easy for Ron to switch it, but he is good with all that stuff, and he switched because of what he believes, not because of one thing is better than the other or
Oh,
anything at
I
this point.
understand that completely.
Yeah.
And I agree with him. And I can tell you that for me to replace it, it is as easy,
Okay.
right, as doing a search and replace in a couple of files. And whenever went to
Uh-oh.
100% again, right?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
you're
And I found the culprit. Give me 1 sec.
It's got to be Chrome.
Okay, we should be good for a while. Still very high. I'll check it later. Anyway, so
Okay,
I would have done the same. And for me, the replacement, right? And it is something that I'm going to do. is a search and replace for the word Redis and replacing it with Valkey. In my Docker Compose, I know Ron isn't working with Docker at this point, but in my Docker Compose files, and then just restarting the applications. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
And and um and that is what I find bizarre. This is definitely the choice, because it's as if somebody who made the decision didn't think that this is going to happen, right? And that is, history has shown that this has happened multiple and multiple and multiple times, right? Every time a project decides to do something with their license and restrict how open it is, that is a breaking point. This is a tipping point for that project. And for most of those projects, that was a death blow, right?
Okay.
Some of them are still fluttering around, but their communities have diminished compared to the one that got forked.
All right. That's what I
And
was going to
so,
ask you. If you know of any company that or
yeah,
organization that actually decided to go that route and actually, yeah, that was the best thing we did.
I didn't see, I don't think I've seen a single company that actually went,
Okay. Yeah,
got the
that was
upper hand, but I'll take a look and
no,
I'll
no, no. I
fix
mean, it's
my.
just in general, if what comes to your
The big
mind,
ones that I know of are OpenOffice, which split to LibreOffice, and LibreOffice is maintained by the Apache project today, and OpenOffice is their own entity, and they're the smaller, um, the smaller entity. Another one is OwnCloud, which got split into Nextcloud. Nextcloud actually built a successful commercial company around it, uh, and
Okay.
OwnCloud failed, right? So failed. It still exists. It's still being developed. It's just its community. It's much smaller.
But
All
see,
right.
this so that's the question though. Yes, the home lab community for that is much smaller. Are they making more money as a company now? And
Maybe
that's
they're
the
making
question.
more. Maybe they're making more money as a company uh, compared to what they were before. But Nextcloud is the bigger company.
Probably bigger company doesn't mean more money, especially if
Oh no, no,
like
like a lot more commercial users.
oh
That's
really?
my.
Okay.
That's my. Yeah,
Gotcha.
that's what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. I think we're clear
yeah.
that stuff
We beat
about.
this
Yeah. Yeah. We beat it good.
horse to death.
Okay. Here's something that people with Windows 11. I don't know if any of you saw that. Microsoft has confirmed that Windows 11 24H2 has issues with USB connected devices that support the Scanner Communication Language (ESCL) protocol. A compatibility hold has been applied to the hardware. The hold means that hardware connected to USB device supporting the ESCL protocol will not be offered an upgrade to Windows 11 24H2. That's what Microsoft says. This issue primarily affects USB connected multifunction devices or standalone scanners that support scan functionality and the ESCL protocol. According to Microsoft, the issue lies in device discovery. Wait for it to discover USB connected, and you get nothing. Or, as Microsoft put it, you might observe that your device does not discover the USB connected peripheral and the device discovery does not complete. This issue is caused due to the device not switching out of ESCL mode to USB mode, which allows the scanner drivers to be matched. So there's a lot of people out there with scanners that probably use that protocol. And if you see that your scanner is no longer working, this is why.
See, I disagree with you.
Okay.
I bet you there's not a lot of people using USB connected scanners. I'm sure you've got. I mean, yes, there's plenty of people that are sure, but I mean, with
Oh,
all
but
of these, with all these multifunction, devices that
Mhm.
that you can now go to Staples and get for $200, all that stuff's done
Wi-Fi.
over the network.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
With
I mean,
built-in Wi-Fi. So
how many people actually have a physical scanner plugged USB into their I'm not saying scanners aren't used, but have them USB plugged into their computer.
Yeah,
I would
yeah, but
assume that that
yours,
number is lower,
yeah,
much lower.
Amnon, the one that you're holding your hand,
yeah.
it's probably not using the ESC. It's
Uh,
probably
uh,
using a regular USB because it's a very old scanner,
yeah,
right?
It's probably
it
using
is.
serial. It's a DB9 that Amnon's
No,
connecting.
but it's interesting that something like this would happen, and they
I'll tell you
apparently
what
the
is interesting. What's interesting is that you got the news release here,
Mhm.
right? Was highly technical
Yes.
from Microsoft
Yeah.
about an update that doesn't work. It's as if they are saying, you can read this and you understand it, it's probably your fault.
Do you
Okay.
think this has to do with the fact something like this? Obviously, Windows does all of their testing in the live environment now. They want you to become part of their insider program and stuff like that. You assume that something like this kind of maybe uh, falls along the wayside because of the use of those products. How many people, especially those on like the beta insider group, have USB scanners to,
Yeah,
to
Yeah,
they
they
even know
probably
to
probably,
even
don't. You're
notice an
right.
issue like
Yeah.
this?
well, hold on. They did notice, right? And what they're saying, this is actually interesting. The note said that if Windows Update, right, finds that you have such a device, you will not get the update,
Right.
right?
Hasn't this already
So they
rolled
are
out though?
proactive. What's that?
What's the name of this? Is this 24? What is this update, Amnon?
24H2.
Isn't H2 already out?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
the
that's what I'm saying. So I wonder. I bet you they didn't find it until it started rolling out,
right.
then
Yeah.
noticed the issue, and now is blocking it for new updates. That's
Right.
what
Right.
happened here. 'Cause they wouldn't have put it in the update. They would have. They would have just removed it from. They would have removed the changes from the update if they caught it in the insider program
They
under
did not
beta.
remove it. They said that if there's a hold on that
Yeah,
hardware,
there's a
so
flag. If your
yeah,
computer
and it
uses
says
this,
that
it's
if you're
flagged.
using it, you're not gonna get the update. That
You're not
device
getting, but
that device is not gonna get the
but
update. That doesn't mean that
let's
Windows is not gonna get it.
exactly.
No,
That's
I
my point.
understood.
They
I
have to
understood
fix
Windows
this
will not get.
No,
because if
they're
they
That's the
don't
way
saying
I
fix
the
it,
understood it.
hold means that hardware connected to a USB device supporting the ESCL protocol will not be offered an upgrade to Windows 11 22H2.
which
A
is a
Right.
problem.
device, not
The
not
device would be your computer. That's what they're saying.
well,
Yeah. What
I
your
would think it
printer,
would be the scanner.
your scanner's not getting a Windows update.
Right.
That's a good point.
That's what
Yeah,
it's saying.
yeah,
So
it's a
it's
good
saying
point.
that's why they have to fix this, because if not, then you won't ever be able to update
Yeah,
to this version of
okay.
Windows.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they'll fix it in the
Yeah.
next
oh, yeah, they will.
in the
They will.
next 3 months, right? But
Yeah.
it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Hey, good on them for good on whoever caught it and flagged. And I didn't know Windows. I mean, I'm not surprised, but I didn't know that Windows could flag certain devices based on what they were using. In this case, a very obscure scanner driver or scanner protocol, and just not offer the update. So if
Well,
you, well, I'd
the
be curious, Amna, do you run Windows 11 on your computer where your scanner's plugged in?
no, it's
Okay.
10. But it says the issue is caused due to the device not switching out of
Yes.
ESCL mode to USB mode, which allows the scanner drivers to be matched. So,
The device they're talking about is the computer. That's what they're
uh,
saying. The device is the computer. Anytime
because
they're
of the
referring to
updated
device,
code.
yeah,
Because of the updated code.
yeah,
device
so
is your machine in this
It did it
case.
before, right? And without this update, it'll do it. But
Well, that's
So
yeah, that
if you want to
like
update your machine, unplug your scanner, basically.
yeah,
Oh, that's
that would
interesting. Yeah.
work.
Well, here's the question though. I wonder if it's more than unplugging because that device is still going to be listed as an installed device inside of Windows. So I wonder if that still is going to flag it
Yeah, that's
as a
interesting as
computer
well. I
not to
agree.
update. You
Yeah.
might have to
Yep.
remove the device whole hog.
Yeah, time to update.
Or just run
Um,
Windows 10.
another another thing that people should know: a flaw in a WordPress anti-spam plugin with over
Oh, no.
200,000 installations allows rogue plugin to be installed on affected websites. The plugin they're talking about is CleanTalk. It's
Oh,
an
never used that one.
yeah,
Okay.
anti-spam. So if you have a WordPress site, you need to look and see which anti-spam you're using. WordPress comes with a Kismet, something like that.
Ack is something or other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is an add-on
Yeah,
called.
that one there's a actually I might use this plugin. I have to look. There's one that I use that turns off posts and comments just site wide defaultly on everything.
Check.
Yeah, I'll have to see which one that is. I
Yeah,
don't think that's what it's called. And that, you know, they say 200,000, you think, whoa,
that's
that's a lot. For a WordPress plugin,
not much.
200,000 is
Yeah,
not the top plugin. I
yeah,
mean, the one that Amnon's talking about has millions of
millions.
installs.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
but just if in case you do, just know what's going on.
I
Um,
wonder if that plugin is using Redis.
Now, for those of you who like to play around, NVIDIA has introduced Fugato, an
What'd you call it?
AI music editor that can generate never heard of audio combinations, including instruments mimicking animal sounds. The tool processes both text and audio inputs to create music, sound effects, and modified speech. The system can isolate vocals, swap instruments, and alter voice characteristics. Um, yeah, I don't have use for it, but I'm sure there's somebody out there that does. Right?
This is the future.
Yeah. Let's see what else. Who's still playing with Raspberry Pi? A lot of people,
I
right?
have a couple, but none of them are currently in use. I was using one for a little bit as a dashboard machine
Well,
to look at
the
Home Assistant, but
the
it
the
got
new
corrupted my SD card, so I
the
stopped
news
using it.
here is Raspberry Pi has announced the Pico 2W, a wireless version of its Pico 2 microcontroller board built for hobbyist and industrial application. It's $7. It's a relatively inexpensive way to control electronic devices like smart home gadgets and robots. With the new version, users will be able to securely link to remote sources to send and receive data either via Bluetooth 5.2 or Wi-Fi 802.11n. So a lot of people that hobbyists using these little computers, and apparently that's a big thing. It's very interesting. And you all heard about Palo Alto, right?
Palo Alto Networks?
Yep.
Oh, what
They,
happened?
they boast 70,000 customers in 150 countries, including 85 of the Fortune 500. But last week, thousands of Palo Alto Networks firewalls were compromised by attackers exploiting two recently patched security bugs. Um, I heard the name. I don't exactly know what what else they have, but it's obviously that their firewalls were compromised. And when you compromise,
Listen to your press release though.
yeah,
the compromise were already patched bugs,
Yeah.
and the devices that were hit were ones that were likely not up to date. And a firewall is something that is, I shouldn't
Yeah,
say it's very hard, but
yeah,
that is a device that you typically don't want to. I
right.
say you don't want to update. Now, firewall rules can update without the device having to be completely restarted and flashed.
In many
So,
cases, yeah, especially
yeah,
under
so I'm
Linux.
curious about this, if depending on the kind of exploit that this was, um, how they actually how the update rolled out for this. Is this where
Uh,
people have automatic updates disabled, where people are manually doing this every 1, 3, months, never, as in many cases? Um,
Oh, for sure. Enterprise networks will not do this automatically, but they do have scheduled
yeah.
maintenance.
well,
Um,
yeah, they do, but then God, how many times? And I won't use enterprise. We'll use like We'll use medium to large size business. Oh, our update window is this third Saturday. I know there's always an issue on that third Saturday, and here you are 3 months later, and you haven't done it.
well,
I'm sure that's probably a huge part of this as well.
Well,
Nobody wants to rebuild the firewall.
no, and they stand to be reprimanded big time if they don't do it.
Yeah,
And of course,
absolutely.
if they do it and it screws up, why did you do it? It's
Well, and
all
you
well,
think
I'll
about
tell you, Amnon.
yeah.
I'll tell you, Amnon. The real reason is they are not listening to our show.
Yeah, they need to listen and know what's going on.
Yeah.
All right.
this also brings up the whole, work from home, when you've got so many more people VPN'd and remoted into networks and
Mhm.
things like that. It's got to make maintenance on this stuff
Oh,
damn
horrendous.
near impossible. I mean, when you have people in the office 9 to 5, your update window could be, 5:30 to whenever. But now when you've got people working across the country, all over the place, weekends, middle of the night, people are up working. That's rough.
Yeah, but it's possible. It's nearly impossible,
It's
but
definitely
yeah.
possible.
All right. A piracy ring that gave 22 million subscribers in Europe cheap access to content stolen from international streaming services has been shut down by Italian authorities after a 2-year investigation. The criminal enterprise used a complex international IT system to capture and resell live programming and other on demand contents from companies including sports broadcaster DAZN, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Paramount, Sky, and Disney Plus. Authorities estimate the operation generated revenues of roughly $264.3 million a month,
Wow.
or 3.2 billion a year. And this I have a problem with, and caused combined damage of more than 10.6 billion to the affected broadcast companies.
Nah.
That's assuming that everybody that got it in a
Yeah.
pirated way would have gone and got, yeah. The rate of profit you get from these illegal activities with lower risk is equivalent to the cocaine trafficking.
Well, sure.
The
What's the
criminal
what's the
pros
cost of stealing?
yeah, the criminal prosecutor who led the investigation told reporters. So yeah, I mean it's a big, I mean, 2 years it took, but they did
What
it.
does it have the name of the service?
No.
Because there was one that we looked at for a period of time. I don't remember the name of it. Um,
Oh, yeah. Those are not Italian based.
No.
no. We
You're
talked about
talking
it. I don't
about Apollo Group.
Apollo. Yeah.
Apollo Group. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Are they still
I think
around?
those are Chinese based.
I don't know. Yeah. Um
They are still around.
Listen to this.
Interesting.
Major technology companies criticized Australia's new law banning social media access for users under 16, which passed Parliament on Thursday with bipartisan support. The legislation threatened fines up to 32 million for platforms failing to block minors. TikTok warned The ban could drive young users to riskier offline spaces, while Meta called it a predetermined process.
What, like Blue
Questioning,
Sky?
Riskier offline spaces.
well,
I couldn't get a hit from the TikTok, so I went into the streets. Oh man.
they were questioning the rushed parliamentary review that gave stakeholders only 24 hours for submissions. Uh, Reuters adds that Snapchat parent Snap said it leaves many questions unanswered. The managing director of Digital Industry Group, which has most social media companies as members, said no one can confidently explain how the law will work in practice. The community and platforms are in the dark about what exactly is required of them. It's true.
No,
No, it's true.
no, no,
It's a
no.
big deal
Sorry,
to.
no, no. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because there are already established working practices. They're shit, but there are already established working practices on how to confirm identity, right?
Okay.
And if you look at what Xbox is doing and what PlayStations are doing in order to
Oh,
allow minors to play on their platforms, right? So nobody's going after them right now of the fact that you're allowing, I don't know, your 6-year-old to play a game. They are highly they have put in very very tough systems, right, that are they're a chore to go through in order to define them. So that's why I'm saying I call bullshit, right? It's just they don't want to do it. And now keep in mind, they are today claiming to not have anybody under the age of 13 on their platforms, right?
ah,
Because
sure.
there's a EULA that is being signed at the beginning. So now, right, they'll start by just doing claiming the same thing just for 16 and just for Australia, right? So
Right.
I think it's going to be an interesting um, the interesting part is once this legislation kicks in, is in effect, and starts to be,
Enforced.
I, yeah, the enforcement is the interesting part, and that I agree, right? But notice they did not in their response is it's not on how we're going to do it, although they're claiming that that's like one of the question marks. The government doesn't need to tell you how to do it.
Yeah, you just
The
need to
government
do it.
needs to tell you what you're doing wrong, right? And that's the regulation.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to learn how they plan to regulate this because I'm pretty sure they don't have that ability. But what they will have, Australia will be this closed circuit data set with information of what happens when less teens have access to social media, and
Yeah.
that is going to be interesting. See the effects of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
It's going to
any
hurt them.
claim from any side, even those who are trying to ban access to social media, it's like,
Yeah.
do you hear
Uh,
yourself? It's like,
Nearly 89% of smart device manufacturers fail to disclose how long they will provide software updates for their products. A federal trade commission.
89. That seems low.
The review of 184 connected devices included hearing aids, security cameras, and door locks. Revealed that 161 products lacked clear information about software support duration on their websites. So, how long are you going to support it? I don't
a
need to
year.
worry. Nick, remember the cameras that we have? Those,
Yeah, the MIPC cameras,
yeah,
they still work.
I don't need to worry about mine.
Why?
When we came back from Sarid on Thursday, I'm I'm
It
smelling
was on
something
fire.
electric, and I said to Han, I said, "I'm smelling something electric." I went around, I couldn't find it. The next day, I'm laying there. And by the way, I have a new hearing aid that I hear a lot of stuff much better. I hear
What?
clicking, and I'm saying, "Where's that clicking come from?" So
Oh,
I
it's
walk
rebooting.
around the room, I walk around, and finally I'm saying, "Oh, it's coming from the camera." And the light, the red light was on. So I said, "Okay, I guess I need to." No, I tried to bring it up, and it says it's offline. So
Mhm.
I decided to reboot it. So I disconnect the power, put the power back, nothing. So I picked it up and smelled it, and yeah, it was stinky. The good news is on
So
Black
all of
Friday,
the magic smoke that makes it work came out.
yeah,
No, these cameras were free. How did we get these cameras, Am? I don't
I,
remember.
I,
We
there
I
bought
think
was
something
Uzi
else on
found them in
Amazon.
some.
it,
Uzi found them in some
no, no,
like
no. It was
not
something
them.
on Amazon that you had to,
You
if
buy the
you,
product and then you leave a review and
right,
then you get a free product. Amnon
yeah,
and I bought something and then we
yeah,
got these free cameras. I use mine. It looks at my 3D printer.
yeah. I mean, I opened it and I looked, and I could see a chip on the board that was burned. But
That clicking you heard was the infrared coming on and off.
I guess I don't. I mean, I wasn't looking at it. I was trying to
Yeah.
hear, and it was very interesting. But I went ahead on Friday and bought one on Amazon that had the most uh, reviews. Like I'm at 30 some thousand, and it was almost 5 star. $16.
What brand?
Casa.
Casa. Okay, that's TP Link. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
not going to go anywhere anytime
yeah,
soon.
yeah. So it's interesting, but I never realized that for those uh, little devices that you can buy, that they don't tell you how long it's going to be.
I can't believe ours still worked.
Yeah, well,
God, these cameras were so makeshift when we first got them. Like the whole web interface was in Chinese, and you could not change the language. The
no.
URL was some real sketchy URL that you had to log into. It was literally a Chinese domain. And this thing has sat on my network for years.
Yeah, but it worked.
Yeah, we're great.
Yeah.
Never had any
So
issues with it.
so when they call you in front of the national committee and ask you, do you have any ties to the Chinese Communist Party?
Oh, believe me, when I get called in front of that committee, it's not
Uh,
going to be for that. It's going to be for all of the
guy,
other things I've done and am
guys,
associated with.
guys, look at the chat. Morn says, I just installed 24H2 and can't get my Canon image class D420 printer scanner to scan.
Yeah, well,
The printer works though. It is a USB device. How do I know if it uses ESCL?
Probably uses the
I don't
SCL.
know.
I don't think it has a different mode, but how does he know? Probably do a search for the model on Google and the ESCL and see if
Like
that's
hell, if I had one of those, I would call Canon.
no. Do you think some Canon level one support rep's going to have any idea what the hell an ESEL is?
No, but I would say, hey, I heard about this problem, and now I can't scan. What do I do?
Well, you'll roll back the update. I mean, that would be the
yeah,
either
that's what they
remove.
will tell him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Your solution is you've got two options. Either you could probably force the driver installed manually because from what the article Amnon read was because it's not switching to USB, it's not being able to do the auto driver install. So you
right.
could probably force the driver um, as a solution. And if that doesn't work, roll back, but just roll back. I mean,
And
that
for
would
all
be,
and for all you know, I mean, there may be an updated driver on the Canon site
it's,
that says
it's
this
not
is
about
I
the
don't think the
updated
problem is
driver
the
though.
driver. Yeah.
Yeah. The issue is that the Windows is not telling the scanner to switch to USB so it can do the automatic discovery.
I think it's
On
telling
the
it, but
Windows
it can't.
side, it's the Windows side part of the auto detection. That's the problem.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
there you go, Morn.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the D420. This is an older device. Trying to figure out trying to see the year. Um, this is not a new device, so that would probably explain maybe part of not that there's anything wrong with the device, but
No.
it fits into this category of what we're talking about very well.
So I would say also if the device can work wirelessly, try that.
Yeah,
See if it
if that's
see
an option, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, it does say set up a network connection. I don't. It's not wireless. It looks like it can connect via LAN.
Okay.
Good
Um,
enough, right?
yeah, well, better. I would argue. I There is, it's amazing all of the technology and how things have adapted. Yet wireless printing still still is one of the most unstable, unreliable things on the planet. When I was working at the managed service provider a couple of years ago, there was not a single day that didn't go by where multiple wireless printers just stopped working and you just simply had to remove them and re-add them. And this isn't like a home network where reservations are expiring and devices are trying to connect under the same IP because things aren't set up right. I mean, these were small to medium sized business networks with professional firewalls set up and static IPs on everything, and they were so freaking unreliable.
Yeah, probably because
Because it was the printer. Because I use cups at home. I have a USB printer that I use, cups, which is serial or what does cup stand for? Central Universal Print Server or something like that. And I never have an issue wireless printing. It's the crappy web servers or print servers built into these devices that just never
yeah, it's
work.
because printer manufacturers were never big software developers,
Yeah.
right? And software is complex. And so, yeah.
And he's
Never
saying
cease to amaze me.
he says I did a manual scanner driver install from Canon. No good.
Yeah. Even if you've done the reason I said try that is even if you've done the manual install, if Windows is still not telling the driver or still not telling the device to connect via USB, then I guess doing the driver is not going to make any difference
Yeah.
because it's still not in a mode in which the driver can attach to it. Um,
But
Rolling back
again,
the
I
update is
you got to roll
probably
again,
back
the
the
best.
update. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
but again, we said it's probably going to be solved pretty quick. I mean, pretty
Well,
quick
it all
within a
depends.
month.
If he needs his scanner, roll back the update. That
The
should
other
be a
option,
rather painless process, the same way that the update process was painless. So it's not um,
That's true.
Windows.
You could
Most of the time, Windows does um, uh, a pretty good track record when it comes to reversing their updates. The
mhm.
technology that they have behind the it's called shadow copying, I think.
Yeah,
Shadow
you c
voluming,
you
volume shadows. So it should be okay.
yeah, you should be able to go to the Windows updates and say uninstall an update.
very
Yeah,
easily.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I know we need to go,
Yeah, you
but
can. Yeah,
I
you
have
can.
one thing I want to mention. Let me see if I can pull this up. Um, okay. There is a piece of software that I have come across um, that is available on GitHub that I think will be helpful to some people. It's called um, it's called Explore Dialog Path Selector. Really really lengthy name. But this is what it does. I'm going to pull a picture into my software here so you can take a look at it. So whenever you're on your Windows computer and you're using all these different kinds of softwares, um, they don't always have the ability to manually paste in a path at the top. This would be the path to a file or the path to a folder, like you can in a web browser. So there's this software called this Easy. dialog path selector, and you create a hotkey with it. And in any dialog menu, ones that do or don't have path selectors, you can enable this and it will allow you to automatically navigate to an Explorer window that you already have open. So if you're in some weird piece of software and trying to save, or you're in a piece of software and you're trying to save a file to a specific location and you have to go through the dialog tree, see users, Nick, documents, this folder, it's a huge pain in the ass. This program, which is available on GitHub, I'll post the link in the chat to it, makes it incredibly simple to do so. You literally just right in this case middle mouse button click and it allows you to automatically navigate to the path. So that's my tip of the week
Nice.
for
Yeah, put it in
for a
the
piece of
chat.
software. You don't realize how annoying that is, and it's been annoying forever. You don't realize how annoying it is until you don't have to do it anymore. So check it out.
The only thing that I found out with it, what you're talking about, paths in the browser and all that, many times in a browser, you can right click or click on it, and then right click and paste.
In the new, yeah, if it's using like a modern file browser where you can paste the URL at the top, yeah.
Yeah.
But if it's using anything else, like the small little square one that just has the
Right.
dialogue tree, you're shit out of luck. There's nothing you can do. This
Well,
one works in that.
Well, the thing is that it's like different sites, and in the cases where I can't right click and paste, I can do a Control V, and it does put it in there, which is ridiculous. I mean, I don't understand
Oh,
it.
that's easy. That's easy. There's an extension for it.
Oh,
Uh, so what happens is these sites, either intentionally or unintentionally, because they're using some sort of framework, uh, takes over the right click event in the browser,
oh,
and sometimes it's intentionally, sometimes it's not. But there are extensions that prevent the JavaScript that's running inside the web browser, inside the site that's being loaded, to take over that event, and so you can it can retain your right click abilities. And on top of that, there are similar events for clipboard events. So there are websites that do not allow you to paste into a password uh, entry, or
mm-hmm.
when it asks you the email, the second email, you
Right.
cannot do copy paste or something like that. There uh, you can limit the ability of the website to prevent that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean
So
that's
it's
the
a double
only.
negative. Yeah. The
It's
on Firefox, it's called absolute copy, I think.
oh,
uh, Absolute enable right click and copy. That's what I'm using on Firefox. There's a similar one for Chromium based browsers.
and you mentioned Nick. You mentioned the JavaScript, or you said that. Yeah.
I said
Did you hear that? What's the name? The company that owns JavaScript? The the
company
big
that owns JavaScript.
database company in
Oracle? They don't
Oracle.
own JavaScript, do they?
No, the Java.
They own
They own
Java.
Well,
Java.
something about Oracle and JavaScript. They are getting sued by some other company because they claim that they want it because after they bought it, they did not do anything for it. They did not. Uh,
So that'll be Java, not JavaScript.
Maybe they're
Well,
talking
this is
about.
interesting. They have the trademark on JavaScript. Funny enough.
Oh,
Mm.
and they saying that in the last time that they renewed it, they actually lied when they say we did
Probably.
this, we did that, and they didn't. So yeah, there's a lawsuit going now.
So they've got
That's
with the
actually a good thing.
which makes sense that they would have the trademark for JavaScript, because before JavaScript existed in Java, there was some scripting probably that you would call JavaScript. And yeah, it
Okay.
looks like they've got the trademark to that. Makes sense.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Yep. All right. Anything else, guys?
I will not be here next week. I will be in I'll be in Sin City.
Oh, what's going on?
For a bachelor party.
Oh, nice.
So I'll be
Nice.
I'll be in Lost Wages, Nevada. So we'll not be. You never heard that before? Lost Wages, Nevada. Yeah.
Never heard that.
Lost wages, lost house, lost everything. So I won't be here. So
that's fine. Enjoy.
thanks. We'll try. Hopefully, I don't have to mortgage my house. Come live with Hannah.
Nah, you did. You've been there before, and you didn't do bad. You know how to.
No, those are
control
work
yourself.
trips, though. So
all right. Gal?
Wait. You're saying the work trips did not involve alcohol?
No, they did. Because I had to attend at least some of the business functions, I couldn't sit all day at the blackjack table. But now, in this case, from literally around the clock. There's no itinerary.
Are you taking your Switch with you?
My Nintendo Switch?
Yeah, instead of playing those games, play the ones that you want.
I have not turned my Switch on in the better part of 2 years. I should bring it and pawn it at a shop in Vegas. See what they'll give me for yield Nintendo Switch.
Oh. Okay then. Gal, anything you wanted to add?
Nope.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. This was great. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
And thanks, Gal. And good morning, Kathy, Hannah, Nabil, Mac, Norm, Katie and Donna, Dina, Mati, Eleanor, Sarid, Yaakov and Yael. Thanks, everybody, for tuning to Computer Studio Now. We hope you enjoyed and maybe learned something from our time together. Remember to practice safe computing, back up your hard drive, and update your virus scanner. And change any same passwords where you have them. We'll be back here next Sunday at 9, but you can always reach us at computerstudio.com. Monday through Friday, 5 to 6 a.m., Nick hosts the Carolina Journal News Hour on WBT 1110 a.m. and 99.3 FM. And it's also on YouTube. And also, Nick and Brian host the Infection Podcast on Twitch. You can just go to infectionpodcast.com and see when the live show is going to be. Although lately it's been on Tuesday every time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our next episode is our 500th episode.
Wow.
We've been at it. We've been at it a minute.
It's interesting. Go and watch. So remember, it's Infection Podcast on Twitch, and it's about survival games, game news, political stuff. Very, very, very interesting show. All right. Have a great week, everybody, and see you next week.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com and DeltaForce.net.